I spend a lot of time being busy and purposely keeping busy, hey, because there's been a lot of young deaths in the family, and I feel like I've only just started living for me and achieving for me rather than trying to make up and compensate for a short life. Blackfellas do a lot of surviving. Some mob don't even make it through surviving. So I think for me, Soob is a way of thriving and living and experiencing life and connection to country and to mob. People can go into a lot of depth, but broadly, it's just that, yeah, we're doing more than surviving.
But for me, it's a feeling. My well-being is a feeling. You know, like I know when I feel well, and I know when I feel unwell. And I think that's often the case, that it's, you know, you're not somewhere where you're feeling well if you've got a feeling that's just not quite right. We talk about the holistic self and the holistic concept of well-being. And for me, there's so many elements of that. And to connect to my culture, I can do that through just feeling the wind, hearing the birds, looking at the trees and the vegetation, feeling the ocean and the water temperature, the dirt, the earth, all those things, you know, I kind of see as part of my well-being. And my idea of connecting to my culture, it's all, I guess it's almost like a sense of mindfulness.
Well, for me, I guess, when I'm looking at it, and we can kind of like talk about it and expand from it, but I guess when I think about it, I look at wellness, you know, on a space where it's like if my family's going okay, and it's actually more, instead of just me, it's actually my family and community around me. So I kind of look at all the avenues around whether I'm connected to culture, you know, my kinship, being connected to my ancestors, having the ability to have flexibility in my decisions. And that sounds like a really kind of weird thing to think about, but you know, there's times where we don't have that opportunity to have flexibility. So that's when I actually become unwell, is when, you know, I get stuck in systems or I get stuck in other things. So I think it's about just having choice and that kind of element there. And I think the reason for me why it's a bit different is that because I have a little boy and I have, you know, a partner and those things, and that's actually part of how I can function, because they're all part of me as well.
For me, well-being, I think like when I think about being well and happy, it's when I'm engaged with all parts of my life. I'm sort of feeling balanced, like, you know, things are going well with family and friends, and I'm able to be outside and out in the environment and balancing out my life in terms of health, and but engaging in the work. Like I'm, you know, very involved with work. Work's a big part of my life, but in the way of, I know I'm well when I'm thinking well and engaged in that, and able to be healthy, like in my mind and my body, and being outside is really important to me.
I sit a lot in comms and data translation, so I do a lot of graphic artwork. I try and focus that energy to not existential dwelling, but to creating space. And I love that I can do that in stride. Hey, we've got good leadership and good black leadership too, so it's different to what I thought research would be. I'm not leaving. I told Veronica I'm going to be so old. I'm going to be like, look, this is how we did it back in my day. Now this is how you fellas going to do it now. So I want to pass that generational baton of artwork and community and health and be like, do better.
I think it's just understanding that it is an individual, family, community thing, that it's not a one-off concept. It's not an end point. It's a you know, someone described it in our group as a journey. You know, it's a process. It's a work in progress. Something that we incrementally, I think, try and achieve. And sometimes we, you know, 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And that's the reality of our well-being. You know, it's not always exponentially increasing. There is hiccups. There is troughs, as well as there's peaks. So just trying to really understand that it's a moving space, you know.
Yeah.
It's not, there's not a one thing that is our well-being. I think that's really important to just say that we don't know, you know. We're just learning, we're exploring, you know. Probably the only other thing I could add there too is, you know, we talk about the social determinants of health, you know, housing, education, employment, justice. You know, I think the whole model around social emotional well-being is important, just to at least get an understanding that all those things overlap and interrelate.
Yeah.
And they create well-being on an individual, family and community level. And if those systems aren't integrating, and, you know, the people that provide services in those areas aren't talking to each other and coming across in a collective way, it doesn't work, you know. You can't have well-being if one of those things in your life isn't there. If you don't have a safe house, if you don't have food security, you know, if you don't have an education, which means you often won't get good employment. So having all those domains fulfilled for a person at the individual, family and community level is really important.
I feel like we live and breathe it every day, you know, when it comes to certain things. And, you know, there's pillars and there's elements in there, like Tess was kind of talking about, you know, there's particular sub areas underneath it as well. But for me, I try to have social inclusion at work. So started a walking and yarning group on the weekends, and for people who want to check in and catch up, that they can, and it's kind of fluid. So if you're busy, it doesn't matter, and if you can make it, that's really awesome. So connecting in and having social connection is really important. It looks different in every place I'm in. At the moment, I've moved to a new area, so, you know, being exposed to language is really important, so learning the language in that area, whereas I spent a lot of time in Borlu. So I knew language, I was surrounded by elders, and I know that for me, that's really important that we have that, and I advocate that for where I work as well. And having connections into, you know, Mother Earth, or going outside in nature and immersing my family in that space. So when it comes to work, I'm always kind of looking at that lens around not just picking one particular point, but actually thinking about all elements and how can I offer that connectedness to every part of work I do, and that relational element as well. So I think over the last couple of days, a lot of people would hear me talk about relationships are everything. And even in research, maybe we're removed a bit from things, but it's still so important for us to actually have relationships in our community, relationships within our Stride fellas, and relationships with other people, because people matter and connectedness matters.
For me, like I've been in the research space, but I'm moving into being a psychologist. So as a psychologist, I would hope that how I would approach social and emotional well-being is not just taking an individual as a mental health. Like, I just think understanding everything that is going on around that individual, whether they're Indigenous or not, but like the elements of their life that are contributing to what's going on for them in a mental health capacity is not going to be just like clear cut and just mental health. It's, you know, everything that's feeding into that. And as a researcher, I think addressing society's role in individual well-being and how we make spaces more supportive of people's well-being and mental health.
I think that's a really big thing, and I think that's like, you know, it is about looking at the systems and trying to scaffold around people to make sure that they've got, you know, more choice and more opportunities, and that's part of what our role is we're not just one little arm, we're actually quite a broader context in a space, and people aren't just one little bit. There's so many things that are going on. Are they connected to their environment? Do they even have access to support services? Do they have these things? And that's, I guess, why we work in here, whether it's clinical one-on-one or it's in a population space.
I look forward to, you know, experiencing life. Yeah. And I think that's, I think I've built a lot of enthusiasm for that. And now that I've slotted into a place where work and hobby and like how I feel like I belong is literally a value, cuz I'm extra enthused for life now. It's so good. I can make a career out of this. What?